YouTube, what's going on? We're back. We're back. And I'm not going to make any promises about when the next video is going to come because I don't know. And it seems like every time I make a promise that I'm going to, get videos out a little bit more regular, it just doesn't happen. So, sorry about that. Anyway. When the temperatures warm up, even here in California, it gets warmer. Not as warm as some places, obviously. I don't really smoke a pipe as much. I still smoke probably like a bowl a day. But, in the fall, winter, and early spring, it might be 2 or 3 bowls a day, depending. So, it's just my smoking goes down, so everything, everything related to pipe smoking goes down. But we are back today with another tasting session, another, I don't like calling them reviews, another video about a certain pipe tobacco blend. And that blend is Savinelli Doblone de Oro. I'm smoking in my little Winslow Crown billiard. I picked this tobacco up probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was at that time already like 5 years old. And it was in a shop that's about 2 hours away from me. He had 2 tins of it, and they're the big 100-gram tins. And in fact, I think he had more, but I bought 2 tins. And mainly the reason why I bought it was because at that time it was like 4 or 5 years already old. So I figured, take a risk, take a chance on it. It's got, generally things that I like in it. It says Virginia's burleys and dark-fired Kenyan leaf are enhanced with an impeccable addition of spicy perique. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of burleys, so that kind of concerned me, and I think that's why it took me so long to open a tin was, the burleys and dark fired. So I'm not the hugest fan of burleys. They can be okay. And despite one of my favorite blends being Scottish cake, I'm also not necessarily the hugest fan of dark fired. I think that dark fired, I probably like dark fired a little bit better than burley. But I don't like a lot of dark fired. I like small amounts of dark fired. And I've had a lot of blends in the last couple of years that they either use more dark fire than I prefer, or they're using some sort of dark fire that's stronger than I prefer. Not stronger in nicotine, but just stronger in like influence on the blend, to where you just kind of get like, just straight barbecue flavor. Not like a smoky, like a Latakia smoky flavor, but more like a like a smoky barbecue type of flavor with like a slightly sweet, smoky flavor. And anyone that does any kind of barbecuing or smoking will probably kind of understand what I'm getting at. So, I like Scottish cake because it uses a little bit of dark fire, but not a lot. And I don't know how much dark fire this uses, but the influence of it is not overly large and powerful. So spoiler alert, I've been really, really, really enjoying this blend. I don't think that it's gonna, for me, take over McConnell Scottish cake in terms of where I would rank them. I think Scottish cake I would still put a tick higher, but it's really good. And it's one of those things where it's like, if I can't find Scottish cake, I have no problem buying a few tins of this as a substitute. Now, it's not exactly like Scottish cake, but it does have that little influence of dark fired. It's got the perique, got the Virginia. It's got a little bit of burley though, which Scottish cake doesn't have, but I don't detect a lot of burley in it. So I've really been enjoying it. Burns really good. I usually don't talk about moisture content because moisture content is so um, subjective. Just kind of a lot of it depends on your personal preference. I did find that this was like when I very first opened the tin would have been like perfect moisture content, and then over time it's sort of dried out a little bit. But I mean, it's got a lot of that Virginia when you just smell. When you just smell, it smells like a Virginia, and like I said, it is a little bit dried out. So I do remember when I first opened the tin, there was a little bit of that hay, that hay note was a little bit sour, like a little bit of a sour note, possibly from like a vinegar note, maybe from the dark fired, or a little sour, earthy note from the perique. But it was really, really, really pleasant. And like I said, I would have liked it like a touch more moisture content when I first opened the tin. I don't mind letting something sit out for 10, 15, 20 minutes to sort of get to what I prefer the moisture content to be. But I will say it was nice that I could just open the tin and just fill a bowl, and it was exactly where I wanted it to be. Like I said, though, it's gotten a little bit dry. This tin's probably been open for like 2 months or so. Which is actually me smoking it pretty fast. For a 100-gram tin to be open for like 2 months, it's actually like fairly quick. That's kind of the nice thing about where I live is usually stuff doesn't dry out too fast because the moisture content is generally a little bit higher in a lot of blends. So after like 2 months, it's kind of down to like almost the perfect moisture content. This started out a little bit less moisture, so. But still totally smokable. I don't feel the need like I have to, rehydrate it or anything like that. I think it's fine. So right now it just smells like a hayfield. Just smells like a sweet Virginia hayfield. It's just like really well balanced. Um, I think this blend is just extremely well put together. You don't have one element taking over the show, I don't think. Um, I don't notice the burleys a ton. There is like a slightly nutty note there, but what I don't like too much about burleys is when I feel like the burley content is a little higher, I feel like you get less of a nutty note and more of like an acrid, sort of astringent note that's just sort of harsh. I don't get that with this. Um, you get those nice Virginia flavors and feelings. Um, a little bit of that perique. There isn't. I don't think there's. They say it's an impeccable edition of spicy perique. So I don't know what that necessarily means. Impeccable edition. It doesn't really say whether it's a small amount, a medium amount, a large amount. I would guess it's on the smaller side. So to me, it seems like it's probably a majority Virginia. Step down a little bit for the dark fired. Step down a little bit more for the burley and the perique. So if I had to guess, I would say that it's Virginia, and then dark fired, burley, perique, something like that. Really good, really well balanced. Um, it's just like one of those real solid smokers. It's not, off-putting in any way. Um, it, it I don't know that it really blows your socks off, but I can't really think of something that really does. Um, like I said, Scottish cake is one of my is kind of my top three, top five, and I would put this like just a little bit below that, a tick or two below that. Um, I wouldn't buy it over Scottish cake if I could, if Scottish cake was, available and this was available and I could only pick one, I would pick the Scottish cake. Um, but I'm sitting here thinking I can't think of there may be something out there. I can't think of a blend that has burley and dark fired in it that I would pick over this one that I've had anyway. So yeah, I can't really think of one that has burley and dark fired. There's probably one out there, but it's not coming to mind. So I think people sometimes get scared off by the dark fired and the burley. And if that's you, if you're one of those people that's been scared off because of either the burley or the dark fired, or having burley and dark fired together, and think it's going to be maybe a little bit too powerful or a little bit, whatever, I urge you to give it a shot and see what you think. Um, like I said, I kind of avoided it for a little while because of those two elements. I wasn't sure how I was gonna like that, and I'm glad I finally opened it. But anyway, I would say I like it. I don't. I'm like between I like it and I love it. It's like I love it as one of those that I'm gonna buy all the time. When I'm making an order, I'm gonna check to see if it's available. If it is, I'm gonna grab a couple tins. I like it as one of those where it's like, if it's one of those where it's like if I think about it, if I remember it, it's like, oh, I should probably buy another tin of that because I smoked a tin, a while back. I should probably buy another tin of that. Um, so it's right in that, I like it too, I love it type of thing. I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think there's an availability issue with it, which kind of takes it up a little bit in terms of, you know, I think availability, I think when we're talking about how good a tobacco blend is, I think, we kind of have to think, talk a little bit about availability. Because there's some blends out there that are like really good, like knockouts. Like for me, like Esoterica Dunbar is really good, and I would have no problem smoking nothing but Esoterica Dunbar and just that for the rest of my life. I don't think I'd have a problem with that. But it is very difficult to come across. I mean, if I'm lucky, I can buy a 10 or 2 a year. If I'm lucky, I think this year I've bought one. No, I think 2024. I don't think I've bought any tins in 2024 yet. So I think I bought 2 tins of it last year, maybe a 10 or 2 the year before. I think I maybe bought an 8 ouncer in the last year or two. It's just hard to come by. So I think when we talk about good blends, I think we got to talk about that, the availability. Something like Escudo, which is kind of off and on availability, but it's really good. I think that to me bumps it up a little bit. Like it's more available than Dunbar. It's Capstan Blue is another one that you know 70% of the time when you check on the major sites or more, 70+% of the time, it's going to be available on one of those sites. At least that's been my experience. Um, So I think that that kind of bumps it up a little bit. It's nice to have something where you're like, I don't feel like, I'm gonna have a real hard time finding it. Now that all that stuff can change, right? Because with production and everything like that, that can all change. I mean, there was a time where esoterica, you had no problem finding esoterica. You know, in the mid 2000s, 2005, 6, 7, 8, maybe even in the 2010, 11, 12 potentially, like it wasn't very difficult to find esoterica. You could pretty much find that stuff anytime you looked for it. So, and things change. I don't know what that is. I think it's partially, production, sourcing the leaf, and I think it's also that pipe smoking has got a lot of popularity over the last, we'll say, 10 to 15 years. Probably more like 10 years or last 10 years. It's been a surge in popularity. So, the companies that can put out the blends that can withstand that surge in popularity and still, produce high volumes and keep stuff available, there's something to be said about that. I've never been the biggest Cornell and Deal fan. I like GLPs, which is produced by Cornell and Deal, but the Cornell and Deal branded product, I've never been like a huge fan of. But there's something to be said about a company that can generally pump out product and keep it available. I think that's really important, and I think that that's extremely valuable, especially as production goes down. I mean, every year, I've always heard every single year there's less acreage of tobacco grown throughout the world. So, I mean, what does that mean? At some point, is there not going to be any tobacco? At some point, is there going to be so little that that you're just not going to be able to find it? I don't know. I hope not. But I don't know. It's something to keep in mind and to think about and just have in the back of your head moving forward. So anyway, I think that's pretty much going to be it for me today with Savinelli Doblone de Oro. I think it's really solid. It's definitely one that I want to have a couple tins around. Put a couple tins, around the age. And this is one of those, when I opened it, it was 10 years old. And I think I could see it being really solid at, brand new up to a couple years old. But I think 10 years old, it's kind of, to me, like a little bit like Scottish cake. For me, Scottish cake between 10 and 15 years old is pretty ideal. So if you can get it to 10, 12, 15 years old, I think you'll be rewarded for that. But you should grab a tin and see if you like it. And if you do, grab a couple more, put them away for a while. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say. Hope y'all are having a good one, and I'll see you on the next one. Adios.